Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 14th, 2025. And let's get to our goals without any procrastination because I know many people are in the state of, well, but let's put it this way, extreme excitement about this allegedly, meeting, negotiations at Istanbul. And Russians already stated a few days ago that, yeah, sure, we're going to be waiting for the Ukrainian delegation. But let me show you something immediately. I'm not going to be going discussing actually the statement by, or whatever, the news, the publication in the famous Russian very liberal and pro-Western publications Kommersant, that there will be no Lavrov who will be heading Russian delegation. I just want to show you something. It's called hedging. And this is also explains to you why Mr. Putin made this proposal, if you wish, that, yeah, sure, we're ready to talk to delegation, but everybody understands that Zelensky is not coming, most likely. And despite the fact that he was, saying that he's coming, but no, London and Paris will not allow him to do this. But who knows? It's pure speculation. But look at this, what is stated by Bankova Street, which is, of course, the Kiev's 10 Downing Street. Essentially the office of Zelensky. As you can see yourself, it is today, and in Ukraine they admitted that negotiations in Turkey will not be at the highest level. The Zelensky office admitted that, and that essentially they say it's most likely. But Mr. Ryabkov, of course, the first deputy foreign minister of Russian Federation, obviously the friend of Mr. Lavrov, second person in the foreign office, if you wish, or minister of the foreign affairs, he already stated the discussion, if it happens, it doesn't matter who comes there. Obviously, Mr. Putin probably not coming, is about, and he repeated it again and again and again, and I don't know how many times it has to be repeated. It is going to be about addressing root causes of what has happened. And what has happened? Well, let me explain what has happened. If we take a look at today's activity, for example, and as you can see yourself, we have losses for today. They are ticking up back again, so, and it's almost 1,400 of the most, they're KIAs primarily, of troops of Ukraine. As you can see yourself, Ukraine continues to, it's a pathetic attempts at strike some targets. Most of them are civilian targets, and they launched yet another 162 UAVs. They have been shut down, most of them. So, and you see yourself that there is a pretty decent mid-grinder. Sorry for using this kind of, pretty peaceful term, like decent. But yeah, you can see yourself 9 tanks and APCs in the last 24 hours, 48 armored vehicles. They continue those suicidal attempts at trying to penetrate some kind of the defense lines along the border line between Russia and Ukraine. But it's not only that, as we can go now to our friend Marat Khairulin. Here is the yesterday, as you can see yourself, and finally Russians begin to move those, big arrows, so to speak. You can see yourself at the scale, which is the left upper corner, that it's moving. It's moving to completely surround Pokrovsk, and the latest news are also, as you can see yourself, they are from Drushkovka and Liman. Now armed forces of Ukraine begin to forcefully evacuate those cities. Well, what can I say? It's coming, and, well, doesn't matter what we talk, or how we pretend things, or how we imagine them, or how we discuss all this, hysteria, basically. That's what it media circus about the situation with the upcoming meeting in Istanbul. The special military operation continues. And what can I say? I mean, as so many Russian officials already stated, well, yeah, we can negotiate, but special military operation continues, and until root causes are addressed, and of course those the demilitarization, denazification of Ukraine, which is by essentially by default means removing of Zelensky regime and those curators from London, Paris, and Berlin, and yeah, that's gonna take some time, and Russians are not in a rush. They can do it, all day long. So, and that's what we have. As I already stated many times, Russians, probably second after Chinese, are really great masters of pulling the tomcat by gonads, and as has been stated, non-stop. Negotiations can continue for years. So there you go. This is what I wanted to tell you about this situation. But we now go to other things, which of course we have to keep in mind. For example, Mr. Kellogg, the guy he has no military education. He went through the military in ROTC. He's deficient, obviously, as the military leader of any rank, for example, in Russian military. But he wants to, stick it to Russians. He's neocon. He has degree in international relations, whatever. So, and he commanded some kind of special forces division and something. So he isn't there, because he has a tremendous level of the professional jealousy and envy, as most of the American generals who never won anything in their lives. And so we have this guy. And this guy, make no mistake, unlike Kellogg, this is the ultimate professional. And before we go, here is his General Gregory Guillot. He is, look at his background. It is very impressive, believe me. I deliberately underline here that he has Bachelor's of Science, real science, General Engineering, U.S. Air Force Academy. This is what you have to get when you go into the academies. Well, of course, General Engineering, I don't know what General Engineering is, but he definitely graduated also after that with Masters of Aeronautical Science from very, very credible institution, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Florida. After that, he's, for example, Master of Strategic Studies, National War College. Yeah, it's all garbage. I mean, there are no serious strategic studies in the United States. They do not exist as such, and the proof is in the pudding. Looking at the performance of the, basically, either U.S. Army itself or its SOBs, but he suddenly decides that for some reason he can project that the Pentagon admitted a direct conflict between the United States and Russian Federation during the escalation of Ukrainian crisis. The conviction of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran in the decline of the West generates a growing desire to challenge the United States, at the head of the Northern Command of the U.S. Armed Forces, General Gregory Guillot. So yeah, he says that, there is still the path that we can clash. Well, I have to say that how to put it, the conviction is not conviction. Well, it's kind of conviction, but the objective data testifies to the fact that United States, and I will be talking about this, you're probably going to see it earlier than this video comes up with Colonel Daniel Davis about this. They, for some reason, believe that they would have the, air preponderance when fighting Russia. Now they admit kind of like, yeah, we don't have it, and not going to have it. But the point is, once there is no that air support, which, for example, they have, the U.S. Army had at the Gulf Wars, yeah, it becomes a not very impressive army, believe me. And so there is no actually conviction to challenge the United States. The United States already humiliated itself in the last 20 years with all kinds of to put it mildly, underperformance against even the most backward enemies. And now I'll be talking about this. We have the failure essentially of the operation, whatever they call Prosperity Guardian, and Mr. Trump negotiating the basically exit from this with Houthis. Houthis control the narrative, and Houthis control who goes through the Red Sea. Simple as that. So now you have these guys whose technology have been paraded by Russians in the special military operation as backward, as extremely ineffective, and he thinks that for some reason there is a path that Russia and United States will clash. No, there is not, because the people who do actual operational planning on the level of those colonels, lieutenant colonels, or maybe brigadier generals in Pentagon, some of them, they have a clue. They understand what Mr. Gulot maybe understands too. He has a background, but he cannot admit it because he has to, per Hollywood script of the American politics, go out and continue to repeat this idiotic statement that, along the lines of Obama's statement that U.S. Army is the finest fighting force in history. Yes, as I many times stated before, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Erich von Manstein, Georgy Zhukov, and Konstantin Rokossovsky, they are spinning in their really graves. But what can I say? That this is what American generals do. The moment they go into this, general 2 stars and up field, so to speak, they lose completely their mind, and they stop being professionals. And you can say that, oh, this is not true. They're still professionals. They just moved, and pushed by the political forces to, kiss ass. So yeah, that's true, but the problem is they completely misinformed about anything war related. That is why when I look at people who graduated some kind of strategic studies institutes and they have the models there, which we all know models, when you talk about this, you do not have the proper data sets, period. And fact is, they don't have the proper data sets even from 100 years ago or 80 years ago from the World War II. They just simply don't. And I will reiterate it again. The military history of the World War II in the United States is written by Wehrmacht and SS officers. And as such, German so-called archives, which are completely made up statistics, that's in the foundation of American view of the war. And that is why U.S. Army cannot win freaking any single war, like just achieve political objectives. They just can't. And so, just to demonstrate to you the level of the, sheer idiocy of all that, let me get you some explanation of what we are dealing with and why this is so important. I will start, I know it's tabloid, okay? It's tabloid and we have been through this tabloid before, but national interest. Look at this, just to demonstrate to you. Oh gosh, this is Northrop Grumman just cracked the code for hypersonic weapons. Okay, for those who do not understand, United States doesn't have genuine hypersonic weapons. Simply doesn't. It has the ballistic missiles, which by definition fly with the hypersonic speeds, but it has been around since, 50s. So, but the point is, this guy, Brandon Weichert, writes this thing, and that tells you how much show, how much Hollywoodish attitude, and, well, frankly, people's being absolutely ignoramuses and uneducated hacks, they try to push on the poor American public, which still believes that, U.S. Army is the best thing, remember 300, Thermopylae, and, whatever, Persian Empire, this all Trump, under his guidance, this was all those magnificent military victories have been achieved. But here, why this attracted my attention? Just cracked the code for hypersonic weapon. And let me show you something, what he's talking about, this guy. He talks about the fact that one of the most promising new weapons developed for the modern age is the hypersonic weapon. The only problem is that the Americans are woefully behind their Russian and Chinese rivals in terms of creating working arsenal of these weapons. In fact, Washington may even be behind the likes of Iran and North Korea. Okay, yeah, that's good admission, and I applaud him for just at least stating this. I understand how butt-hurting it was, but here he comes. There are many factors explaining why the Americans fell behind their force in the critical domain, but Washington has at least become disciplined in this bid to catch up. Well, he doesn't explain what those factors are, but I can tell you immediately it's it's the school of thought in regards to the cruise missiles, any kind of the missilery which is controlled, and he talks about this black barrier, and this is a very critical thing he is talking about actually, not only because it is critical, but because it shows the depth of not only misunderstanding, complete, I mean, just alternative universe they live with in regards to the not just hypersonic weapon, but also in terms of the military science. And here we have, and he talks about the black barrier when they cannot communicate with the because of the this plasma cocoon which is created around those weapons, and that they cannot control it. Well, yeah, that's the critical part of it all. And so he talks about that. But suddenly, well, we kind of cracked the code and they have the solution, the black barrier problem. And guess what he talks about? There, he talks about that, well, the IMU, Inertial Measuring Unit, according to Defense News, is designed to allow high-speed systems to navigate without GPS. Well, that's fine, because, as you might understand, every single modern missile, be that air-to-air missile, be especially long range, let alone anti-shipping cruise missile, or something like 3M14 caliber or TLAM, Tomahawk land attack missile, they all fly. Well, they do have updates, which are the navigation updates as they fly along their path. Well, Americans do it through GPS, Russians do it through GLONASS, but so it's generally understandable that they have their actually updates. But flying at the inertial navigational system alone is not really kind of related to the actual things which missiles do. And this is where we begin to actually completely diverge with this thing. The issue here, which he doesn't understand, and let me show you his CV, and I understand, listen, I don't want to stamp on his completely, but he cannot understand it, because if you take a look at Brandon Weichert, who is the chief editor, the security editor at the National Interest, he has Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science, that means he has no education whatsoever, and associate member of New College History, okay, that's fine, Institute of World Politics, Statecraft and National Security, specializing in defense policy. In other words, the guy has no background and understanding what he's talking about. Let me explain. And this is critical, dude. This is what people still do not understand. They still cannot grasp. This is, let's go, for example, and take a look at IMU. What is the Inertial Measurement Unit? As you can see yourself, they used to be, actually, those units used to be very complex electromechanical things. Nowadays, as you can see yourself, this is SVG systems, which produces all those inertial measuring units, which are critical for navigation. And listen to what I'm about to say. Again, flying or navigating by INS, Inertial Navigational System only, is called dead reckoning. Yes, you can put INS, which is done on the ballistic strategic missile, and things of the nature like it Pershing, it used to be the such missile, or even the earlier version of the Iskanders. Yes, they fly by measuring the inertia. I will explain what is this, and these are the sensors which measure it. But if you take a look attentively at what inertial navigational system is, this is what it is. Yes, this is a general approach to it, and as you can see yourself, for example, when you move on the if you move in the two-dimensional environment, for example, like let's say on the ship, but obviously if you do fly, for example, it's three-dimensional movement and you have to have the other axis, but here you can see yourself that the gyro-stabilized platform, today you have the laser gyroscopes, they do this, and those systems are really just very not large, to put it mildly. As you can see yourself, it integrates the movement along the axis, you see. And then it calculates the change, which is delta phi, and delta lambda, which is delta phi is the altitude, and delta lambda is the change in longitude. And as the result of the calculation, it gives you the geographical coordinates. It's all good. And modern systems are very high accuracy just on the inertial navigation alone, just without that, just being on the dead reckoning. As you can see yourself, it produces also very accurate measurement of the velocities along the axis. As I already stated, if you need the three-dimensional inertial navigation, you have to have the additional axis added, but it's going to be pretty much the same principle. So, but what's the problem? You see, he says that, Weichert states that, Northrop or whatever, they somehow cracked the code. No, they didn't. And let me explain why. The issue of the real hypersonic weapons is not just the fact that you have to have a very high quality and very resistant to, because obviously resistant to temperatures and enormous vibrations and G-forces while you're flying hypersonic. It's the fact that actually, if he wants to use it just merely for dead reckoning, and for some reason inertial measurement unit, Russia produces them, Russians also have a very high accuracy of their INS, inertial navigational systems. No, it's the fact that how you control the missile, how you can actually provide command updates and corrections, navigational corrections if you have to use the GLONASS, for example, or GPS. And in the end, what is a homing device on this missile? Let me explain. United States didn't solve this problem, and it's not gonna solve it for a long time. It's not just the ability to provide command updates and command control of the missiles if you need to. No, this is what you have as the homing device. For now, United States has only idea that it can create, flying fairly accurately by this inertial navigational system, this thing, which is the only thing they have now, which is called, of course, a long-range hypersonic weapon. Here is the very fresh update from the Congressional Research Service from 3 weeks ago, and as you can see yourself, they essentially describe that the Army's long-range hypersonic weapon, Dark Eagle, well, it's having a rather tough time, and they state here some very critical things, which is the euphemisms, so to speak. Pending Army leadership long-range hypersonic weapon fielding decision. Reportedly, senior Army leaders have not yet blessed a roadmap for getting the delayed Dark Eagle hypersonic weapon into soldiers' hands, but that decision could be coming shortly. According to the article with the new Secretary of the Army and other key acquisition officials, long-range hypersonic weapon program officials have not yet been able to brief them on the program and decision on when this weapon is to be fielded and when initial operational capability, IOC, is to be achieved, have to be vetted. Well, that is the euphemism, or if you wish, the spin language about the program is in trouble. And this is only with the essentially hypersonic gliding vehicle, which doesn't have homing device and will fly actually by the inertial navigation with possible correction from the GPS. That already tells you that why United States is so behind. You know why? Let's take a look at something which Russians field already and use combat non-stop with a devastating effectiveness. We can go and, Air Force technology for all we care. And let's take a look at Kinjal. Look at this. Yes, this is Kinjal, so they write about this, as you can see yourself, it's 1 year ago, Russia deployed Kinjal ballistic missile. They are not really ballistic, that's the problem. They are quasi-ballistic, and that's the whole other story. Missiles to destroy Ukrainian facilities and fuel depots during Russian-Ukraine conflict. Well, let's take a look how they describe, rather correctly, the Kinjal missile. The Kinjal is state-of-the-art airborne missile with the hypersonic aeroballistic missiles. The missile has a reported range of between, well, it's 2,000 kilometers, carrying a nuclear unconventional payload of almost half a ton. And look at this, what they state here, which is critical. The hypersonic missile, multi-purpose warhead, can strike stationary targets such as command centers and air bases, as well as moving targets such as enemy warships. Why this is critical? Well, the reason it is critical is because if you fly only on the INS alone, and you need the constant update against the moving target. In other words, you cannot hit moving targets. You need to have a homing device which achieves a full capability of the what is called in Russian called the разведка of the цели, or the refined recon of the target, and that means you have to have a radar or optronic channel or both, which will work in the conjunction and creating the fusion sensor. How did Russians do that? But guess what? Kinjal strikes moving targets. Zircon, it's altogether about moving targets. All of them fly in this cocoon of the plasma. And that's the whole thing. This is the secret of the secrets, how Russians do it, and they already demonstrated it with the devastating effect against both stationary and moving targets in special military operation. And when you look at the Kinjal and when you look at this whole thing, without going into the proper mathematics about this, why, how they resolve actually all those, well, wonderful, uncertainties. You see, like those uncertainties, you cannot resolve them, those uncertainties, by INS or dead reckoning alone. You need correction. What is correction? Well, it is one thing to launch ballistic missile, totally another when you have the hypersonic weapons, which have the homing devices, which operate both in radio and optical diapason. That's the whole thing. In other words, you shoot and forget, and they fly, they detect the target themselves, they develop essentially their trajectory, the terminal, and they hit it. And it doesn't matter how fast your target moves in terms of the surface. And that is why those are deadly weapons, and this is the technical expertise, and this is the type of the technological achievement, if you wish, which United States and Europe, NATO, they are not there, and they will not be there for a long, long time. The only thing they can hope for is, of course, that they can develop some kind of the gliding body, something like the poor people's avant-garde missile or vehicle. But then again, avant-garde vehicle is the Mach 27 terrifying weapon with a strategic range which can fly around the world essentially. And so, yeah, it's a whole other story, let me put it this way. And when you read those reports, like in the national interest, and make no mistake, I understand they need to, prop up something, they need to maintain some kind of the morale among the troops. They're saying, oh, you see, we found this, inertia measuring unit. Well, everybody flies on the inertia measuring units today. I mean, everybody produces laser gyroscopes, and the Russians produce their own laser gyroscopes. Excellent, That's how Russia has its own avionics and all kinds of the, let's say, aircraft, and let alone missiles, at very high precision and very high accuracy. So, but this is what United States faces today, and while people will be expecting and still anticipating on speculating about who and how will come to Istanbul and if Russia will be fooled again, yeah, well, listen to the Who songs. We will not get fooled again. So, but the point is, this is one of the little technological nuances which I wanted to cover today to explain to you how hard it is to fight the modern war and how difficult it is to create the proper TOE, Table of Organization and Equipment, which gets you out of the rut from 1980s and 90s of the US Armed Forces, which they are in now, into the 21st century. United States Armed Forces are not prepared to fight the 21st century war. And I've been on record for this for what, second decade. And this is nothing, wrong with stating this. It's just a matter of how those people understand what they are facing, and maybe they have to rethink their really faulty and really, well, very amateurish doctrines, both geopolitical and military. And this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And this is it for today. And have a nice rest of the week. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.